Hey, Bill, how are you?
Hi, good morning, Paul. Good
Good,
to be
good to,
here.
s- yeah, good to see you face to face. Um,
Yeah,
so the first time we've actually met this way, so I appreciate you taking the time. So this, for the viewers, welcome to subscriber series number 3, and this is with Bill from at My Finger Lakes Railway Layout. On today's subscriber series, Bill is going to be giving us his take on airbrushing and detailing. And it's really a follow-on to subscriber series number 1, where we featured Roy Sharp from the UK, and he talked about how he weathers track with an airbrush. And I would like Bill to go a little bit deeper into airbrushing and how he uses that to um, create the masterpieces that you see on his channel. If you've not seen Bill's channel, I'm a big fan, and Bill's been an influencer. In fact, he's asked me to do a couple of things that I first said, darn it, why did he mention that? And then I went ahead and did it, and I was glad I did it. One being that backboard on the extension, Bill. So
yeah.
I enjoy getting my feedback from my viewers because it really enhances the experience of the hobby for me. So definitely check out Bill's channel if you've not seen it. He's got incredible detail work and great operational things that he features on his video. So again, welcome, Bill, and thanks for doing this. You're in New York State, yeah?
I used to be. I moved south back in 1989, so I'm in South Carolina.
Okay. Well, I should have known that. So South Carolina. Well, we'll talk about New York State. I worked for way back in my career. I worked for Carrier Corporation, so was very familiar with trips to Syracuse.
Oh yeah,
At the time they were headquartered in Connecticut, but spent many days in Syracuse. And then I also went to State University of New York, so familiar with your old stomping ground, which is obviously an inspiration to your railroad. We'll talk about that. So a few questions before we dig into your videos, Bill, because there's some great content that the viewers will see here shortly. Tell me about how you got into model railroading, when you got into model railroading.
well, uh, when I was married, my wife had real bad health problems. I was working full time and then caring for her the rest of the time. So I had zero time for myself to do anything, which, I'm not complaining, but that's just the way it was. And then
Yeah.
she passed away about 7 years ago.
Oh,
And all of a sudden, I mean, I'm still working full time, but all of a sudden I've got time. I'm like,
yeah.
wow, what am I going to do? And I remembered seeing a guy I worked with. He had a model train layout. I saw it on YouTube, and I thought at the time, man, that is cool, but I don't have time for that. And now I
Yes.
got time. So
Yeah.
that was 7 years ago. I started, reading it and watching videos and reading magazines. I knew nothing about it.
Really?
And
So you're not one of these guys that you started out with a Lionel train set and then had a set as a little kid. The typical story. Yours is that's good. You jumped into it relatively recently, and sorry to hear about your wife, but
thank you.
that obviously that probably gave you a reason to look for some way to kind of fill your time and
Oh yeah.
distract yourself. Yeah. All right. So didn't mean to interrupt. Continue on that. That's an interesting way to get into the hobby. 7 years ago, which is relatively new to the hobby, given how much you do now and how great of a modeler you are.
Yeah, and I started out like most people, I guess, with a 4x8, like sheet of plywood, a layout, and Atlas snap track, the
Yeah.
modular sectional track, and I got things going. I got a DCC loco, and I was running trains, after a while, and decorating my layout, and I was having fun. I thought
Yeah.
I was doing good, and I started looking at these magazines. I'm seeing this guy Lance Middenheim,
Oh yeah.
Pele Seaborg, and some of these guys. I'm seeing what they're doing. I'm like, whoa, that's what I want to do. I'm doing
Yeah.
toy trains, which is fine if that's what you want to do. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
You gotta start somewhere. I mean, we none of us started as Lance or Boomer.
All right, right.
So you started out with a four by eight, then you got the bug as you started to detail and thinking, boy, I could take this to another level. Where and
Yeah,
where did you,
I realized that this ain't cutting it anymore. I started to realize what operations were, and so I actually and I was so new to it, I didn't know what I was doing, so I decided to outsource. Which
Uh,
if you don't know what you're doing, that's a good idea. And I
yep.
got Lance Minheim to design my current layout for me, and
Mm.
I'm glad I did. It was worth every penny. I haven't had any problems. I haven't had to tear up one piece of track
Yeah.
or one turnout. I mean, he gave me a lot of great advice on the side too. So
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I spoke to Lance at one point. I was thinking about doing that, and you know, at the time I wasn't really sure how big I wanted to get into it. And in retrospect, I should have done it. But he was a great guy, very accommodating. He referred me to a couple of his books. We had some chats, and that kind of got me started. Um, and then I sort of wung it. But I think I've probably done quite a bit of track changes because I didn't outsource it the way you did. But we all kind of learn different ways. All right, so we're talking about Lance. Talk more about your influencers that as you kind of grew in the hobby. Who were they?
well, yeah, like I say, Lance was a big one, and Pelly Seaborg, if I'm saying his name right, um, the super ultra realistic looks,
Yeah,
and that's what really got me going. And by the way, that's what I see in your layout too. So that
I
really hits
appreciate
home.
that.
Yeah, and of course recently, Boomer.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
Huge. I mean, probably one of the best things that's ever happened to the hobby. Here's a guy just with decades of information and knowledge and experience, and he's giving it all away for free.
yeah.
I
It,
mean, it's great.
at first it's intimidating when you first start to watch what he does because you think, man, can I get there? But he explains it so well that it sort of allays those fears. So yeah, I think just about everybody who's serious in the hobby dips into his content and learns quite a bit. I mean, he's a master artist, really.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm not an artist at all. As a matter of fact, I'm half colorblind. So a lot of the videos I do, I kind of take a Boomer idea and I
yeah,
want to show people, hey, you know, you don't have to be an artist to do this.
yeah,
You can get
yeah,
some pretty good results, even
yeah.
Joe off the street like me. So
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it depends on how you define art. To me, like the ability to look at a prototype and then transpose that onto a model it's artistic. So I wouldn't say
yeah,
you're not artistic, Bill. Your stuff looks pretty darn good from your videos for sure.
thank you.
Um, let's let's talk about the Finger Lakes Railway. A little bit about how you ended on that as your model.
Right. Well, I grew up there. I went to school in Watkins Glen. I grew up about 5 miles out in the country. And so, Schuyler County, New York, uh, people think New York, oh, New York City. No, 100% opposite of New York City.
Yeah,
So, Watkins Glen, it was the county seat. It's the county seat, where the county courthouse is. So, it's the biggest town in the whole county. And the population is less than 3,000 people. And so that gives you an idea, kind of the feel of the lay of the land up there.
yeah.
It's rural, it's
But
country.
but beautiful part of the country. I mean,
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
air and
The
everything is.
Finger Lakes themselves, yeah, it was a great place in the summertime. Winters are kind of
Oh,
brutal, but well,
it,
you remember.
yeah, snow. You're in the snow belt area. All the lake effect snow and
Well, no, we were just outside of that. We missed that.
oh, you missed that.
Yeah, we were further east. You go further west towards Buffalo, and
Yeah,
yeah, that's Snow City. Syracuse gets a lot, but we were just far enough away from that where we didn't get a whole lot of snow, but some brutal cold weather. So
yeah. So it's the what the look of the engines are New York Central. Yeah.
yep, that's the way Finger Lakes. The Finger Lakes Railway was actually born in 1995. I'd already left the area. I've actually never seen the railway run, but
Oh,
I've seen
really?
a lot of video, a lot of photographs. I got a lot of friends online from up
Yeah.
there, and people are always sending me stuff, and so I feel like I've seen it. And so, yeah, they started out doing that New York Central paint scheme because of the New York Central tracks that they
Yep.
run on a lot of it.
Yep.
And so at first, on my first layout, I was doing Norfolk Southern because I live like 2 blocks from a Norfolk Southern little switching yard here in Rock Hill in South Carolina. So that seemed like the thing to do, which
Yeah.
was fine. But then I got thinking about, oh, I want to do a different layout, more realistic. And then it hit me, oh, the Finger Lakes Railway. I know the area and I still love it, and be just a perfect opportunity for some modeling.
Yeah. It's nice to have a personal connection. Like to
Mhm.
me, the province of Worcester, the whole New England, I grew up there in New England. So anything, my Dunkin' Donuts truck and my City Fish reefer vehicle and province and Worcester, I will be adding Conrail and CSX. Of course, a lot of that influence from me. I'm fortunate to live close to Don Irace, who's a tremendous modeler, and he models province and Worcester. But it took to me because I grew up in Connecticut, where province of Worcester runs through Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. So, like you with Finger Lakes, it's nice to have that connection to the prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into your video content. That's really going to be exciting, I think, for the viewers to see. Tell me a little bit before we do that about what you're covering in the videos.
Well, I think I'm starting off kind of showing some of the cars that I've painted, and of course subsequently weathered. But the the Finger Lakes Railway, that they keep their locomotives shiny, looking good. The
Yeah.
rolling stock is ragged, man. I mean, it's like on its last legs. This stuff is These cars are like 30 years old,
Yeah.
and it's not exaggerating. And they show it, but they got so much personality,
Yeah.
and and of course, you can't go buy one like that. I
Yeah.
mean, you could probably hire somebody to paint one and detail it looked like that, but that would run into hundreds of dollars, I think. So
Oh yeah.
so the only choice really is to buy any car, doesn't matter what it is, it's BNSF or whatever. And as long as if you're looking for a reefer or a box car, whatever, the right type of car, prime it and then airbrush paint it and then begin to weather and decals. Always work off a photograph or multiple prototype photographs for these rail cars that I do. I'm not
Yeah.
making them up, even though some of them look so wild. You think this is way over the top. Well,
Yeah.
that's
That's
actually it's real.
that's prototype. Yeah. I mean, I'm very, very new to airbrushing, so I've gotten away with dry brushing and washes and whatnot. And as you know, I recently bought an airbrush and got my compressor set up. What would you say? Just a couple of things that you'll cover it in your videos a bit, but for guys like me who were a little bit intimidated with airbrushing, just because it's a whole new space, some things to allay those fears.
Just practice. If you don't want to waste paint, just get some food coloring and put it in some water and shoot that um, through your airbrush and just shoot it on paper, a piece of cardboard, an old box, whatever you got, and just practice. Um, maybe maybe take a pen and draw some little circles or squares, like a target area on the cardboard, and practice shooting paint just inside that area, and that and
A great idea.
yeah, after a while it'll become more like second nature. And
So was it a quick learning process for you? Did you pick it up right away?
no, no, I kind of struggled with it, and a big turning point was when I got my current airbrush, and I'll talk about that in the video. The type
Yeah.
of a trigger, instead of the button that you push down
Yep.
and for air and then pull back for paint, but at the same time you're really trying to focus on where that paint's going and not too much paint and not too little air. And but when I got this trigger airbrush, that really changed the whole game for me. So now it's
Yeah.
fun and now it's easy.
Yeah. Well, you make it look easy, and the products come out great. So let's get into the video, Bill, and get it going.
All right, man. Hey, thanks
All right.
for having me. Been fun collaborating with you. Hope to do it again.
Oh yeah, we'll be collaborating again. Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Take care. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, hey everybody, it's Bill from My Finger Lakes Railway Layout. A little YouTube collaboration with our friend Paul B. He's sharing the collective knowledge of his subscribers. That's very commendable. Roy Sharp from the UK did a great job of making the airbrush both easy and effective with Tamiya paints. So today it's my turn, and I'm going to talk a little bit about airbrushing Vallejo Model Air. I'll just call it VMA for short. First of all, a disclaimer, I'm no expert and I'm not an artist. First, let's take a look at some models I've airbrushed. And oh, by the way, nobody sponsors me, so my opinions are my opinions alone. Well, here I'm shooting a coat of primer on one of the Diffco dump cars I just finished. I really like this Stynylrez primer. The Badger makes it. You can see this car was decorated as Southern, and I just prime and paint right over all the decals. I never mess with stripping a car. I guess some guys do, but I can't see it. It's too much work. And here's one of the prototype cars from the Finger Lakes Railway. Hey, you can see why I have to paint over these cars. Pretty sure nobody makes them like this. Here's a closer look at the other side of this car, and and here's how they started life. I did two of these. We'll look at the other one when we get back to the yard. Of course, there's a lot more to the weathering on these cars than just the airbrushing. I've got the full weathering videos on my channel, but maybe someday Paul will have me come back for a deeper dive into weathering a car, and that would be cool. These are some covered hoppers I did for Cargill salt. And how they came out of the box. So the point I'm trying to make here is if you want unique, prototypical rolling stock on your layout, the stuff that nobody makes, well, the airbrush is just the answer. Okay, we're in the yard now, and here's that second BAEX car I did. And here's one of the prototype photos that I worked from. And here's this Diffco dump car I was priming earlier, and you can model them as they're tipped up to dump gravel out, stone. I need to get some gravel, maybe some N-scale ballast or something to finish modeling that scene. I built 3 of those cars, those side dump cars. Oh, and here's this front end loader. I actually shot Tamiya on that to give it a fade, to fade that yellow paint. It was just a little tiny bit of Tamiya flat white with a whole bunch of isopropyl alcohol and several coats until you get a nice fade. So let's head over to the layout and take a quick look at some of the projects I've airbrushed with VMA. Here's some smaller details. I shot these yellow bollards with VMA. They're just pieces of sprues. And that little blue building, I shot that with blue, but I didn't get enough white in it. I think I need to come back and give that a fade job. And more bollards here. The guardrails I shot with VMA Aged White. I use that color a lot. Okay, so we've seen what you can do with an airbrush, and now let's look more at how you do it. Well, let's take a minute to talk about the basics, and a lot of you guys will already know this stuff. Okay, single action versus double action. Now, here's my first airbrush, a Pache Model H. Very simple to use, great for beginners, pretty much bulletproof. So what does single action mean? It means the trigger or button releases both air and paint at the same time. You regulate the amount of paint by screwing the tip in and out. And you can see it works fine. It still does. You just don't have the control that you do with a double action airbrush. Now here's my first double action airbrush. It came with a cheap little compressor at Harbor Freight. So double action means you push down on the button to release air and pull back on the button at the same time to release paint. I don't know, I never really got the hang of it. I didn't enjoy it, so I tended not to use it much. And now here's my favorite, a double action trigger style airbrush. So all you're doing is pulling the trigger. The first 75% of travel releases only air. And pull the trigger farther back and it begins to release paint. The farther you pull it back, the more paint is released. To me, it's just a lot easier to use. Oh, look, Vallejo's got a new label. Well, I have to buy my paint online. I don't have a hobby store near me. I like Mega Hobby. They stock almost the full line of Tamiya and VMA. And the Model Air is like $3.50 a bottle. And they have free shipping days once in a while, where if you buy like $30 worth of stuff or something, you get free shipping. Well, now let's talk about the difference between airbrushing Tamiya and VMA. The most important thing is how they react to isopropyl alcohol, or IPA they call it. So Tamiya loves this stuff. Vallejo Model Air, not so much. It's like kind of allergic to IPA. You can thin Tamiya all day long with IPA, no problem. But when you start playing around with VMA and IPA, you don't know what's going to happen. You can experiment on a piece of scrap or something, but just be aware that it can become unpredictable at best. And speaking of thinning paint, I don't thin VMA at all. It seems to be fine and shoots right through the airbrush okay without any problems. As long as you use both a large tip on your airbrush, like a number 5 tip, and you use Vallejo Airbrush Flow Improver. Those are the two keys to airbrushing VMA. I really struggled when I first started airbrushing VMA. I get the tip dry, you know, the paint would dry up on the tip, it wouldn't shoot through it okay. It starts to clog up the airbrush and spatter, and man, it was just really frustrating. And then I was reading some stuff and looking online, and I saw a YouTube video, and the guy was talking about using Vallejo Flow Improver, and wow, what a difference. I put maybe 5 drops of it in the airbrush cup with the VMA and take a stick or something to stir it around a little bit, and wow, it's nice. It shoots great. Oh, and bonus, you can use that Flow Improver in Boomer's wet on wet painting, the brush painting he does. It acts as a surfactant, and it breaks the surface tension of the water. I'd like to take just a moment here and thank Paul B. for asking me to do this collaboration with him. I've been a fan of his layout since I first found it on YouTube. I really love his style, the totally realistic look. That's what I shoot for, that's my thing too. Maybe not your thing, that's fine. Hey, you just make it look the way you like it. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? And a few thoughts here in closing. Just like most things in life, you can watch YouTube videos all day, but the real journey begins when you pick up the airbrush, dump some paint in it, and pull the trigger. And that brings up another question. Why use an airbrush? Why not just rattle can everything? Well, you could, but there are several reasons why an airbrush makes more sense. First, you don't want to be breathing that stuff that comes out of a rattle can. And if the weather's not good, you can't go outside and paint. Second, you risk building up too much paint and obscuring the fine details on your model. And third is cost. and Airbrush uses so little paint, it's very economical. I'll wrap it up here. Hey, thanks everybody for the views and the comments. We appreciate it. Take care. Bye.